Maria had always dreamed of joining the military. From a young age, she admired soldiers, not for their uniform or their medals, but for their courage, discipline, and the way they faced challenges that most people would run from. She wanted to be part of something bigger than herself, to test her limits and see how far her determination could take her. But she knew it wouldn't be easy, not because the military was inherently impossible, but because she was stepping into a world where people often underestimated women. The day she arrived at the military base, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. The base was enormous, a maze of concrete buildings, training grounds, and barracks stretching farther than she could see. Soldiers moved with precision, their boots hitting the ground in synchronized rhythm, radios crackling, and instructors shouting commands. Everything about it was intimidating, but Maria felt a spark inside her. She belonged here. Almost immediately, she noticed the whispers. She could hear men behind her, smirking and exchanging glances. "She'll never make it," one muttered under his breath. Another laughed and added, "Why's she even here? She'll slow us down." Maria's heart beat faster, not from fear, but from determination. She had expected this. People doubted her even before they knew her name. She had heard it all before. Girls can't do this, girls aren't strong enough, girls should stick to easy jobs. But she had always believed that courage and hard work matter more than gender. As she walked past the group of laughing soldiers, a sergeant came forward with a smirk. "You're just a weak woman," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Better stick to paperwork or something safe." Maria could have felt insulted, and part of her did. It stung because she had trained for this moment for years. But instead of answering, she held her head high. There was a calm confidence in her eyes, a silent message. She was not afraid, and she would prove them wrong. Her first interactions with the team were awkward. The men didn't hide their skepticism. Some avoided talking to her, assuming she wouldn't understand the exercises. Others whispered jokes under their breath, expecting her to fail. She noticed everything, but she refused to let it affect her focus. Maria had learned long ago that people who tried to bring you down often wanted to see your reaction. She decided that her reaction would be to work harder, not argue. Even her first day was full of tests. They didn't call it a test officially, but every movement, every small task, felt like a challenge. Carrying heavy equipment, running across the field, and keeping up with drills designed for seasoned soldiers. She noticed the doubting looks of her peers at every step. Some made comments about her strength, while others whispered, "She won't last the week." Maria felt a mix of determination and quiet amusement. If they wanted to see her fail, she was going to give them something to remember. Despite the pressure, Maria found small victories that boosted her confidence. She noticed she could lift more than she had expected. Her stamina during a run surprised her. Even when her hands blistered and her muscles screamed for rest, she kept moving, reminding herself that every moment of struggle was a step closer to proving herself. She didn't shout her achievements. She simply kept going, letting her actions speak louder than their words. By the end of the day, the mockery hadn't stopped, but Maria had discovered something important. Strength isn't about how loudly others cheer for you, or how easily they accept you. Strength is about showing up, doing your best, and refusing to be defined by the expectations of others. She went to bed that night exhausted but proud. She had survived the first day in a world that doubted her, and she knew that tomorrow would be another battle, but she was ready. Even in those early hours, Maria could sense that something was changing. A few of the soldiers who had doubted her were watching differently. Not everyone, of course. Some were still laughing and whispering, but a few quiet observers had noticed her determination. Her eyes were clear, her movements precise, and her focus unwavering. Those who thought she was just a weak woman were beginning to wonder if maybe, just maybe, they had underestimated her. That first day at the base was more than just an introduction, it was a statement. Maria didn't need anyone's approval. She didn't need to shout or argue. She only needed to show up, face the ridicule with courage, and take her first steps toward the impossible goal she had set for herself. By the time the sun set and the soldiers retreated to their barracks, Maria stood alone for a moment, looking at the training field. She felt the weight of the day, the exhaustion in her muscles, but also a quiet thrill in her chest. This was her world now, and she was ready to claim her place in it. From that day forward, Maria knew that her journey wouldn't be easy, but it would be worth it. Every laugh, every mocking comment, every skeptical glance was fuel for her determination. She wasn't just showing up for herself. She was showing up for every woman who had been told she couldn't, for every person who had been underestimated, and most importantly, she was showing up for the part of herself that refused to back down. Maria's first physical endurance test at the base was more than just a challenge. It was a battlefield where every muscle, every breath, and every ounce of willpower mattered. She had trained herself mentally and physically for years, but nothing could truly prepare her for the intensity of this moment. The other soldiers looked at her with thinly veiled amusement, convinced that she would falter at the first obstacle. As the drill began, Maria noticed the cold stares and whispered remarks. "She won't make it through the first lap," one soldier muttered. Another chuckled, shaking his head, as if it was already a certainty that she would fail. For a moment, she could feel the pressure of their doubts pressing down on her. But instead of letting it intimidate her, Maria turned it into motivation. Each whisper, each smirk, became a silent challenge she was determined to answer. The first obstacle was a long sprint across uneven terrain, carrying a backpack full of weights. Her legs burned almost immediately, and her lungs felt like they were on fire. She could hear the laughter of some of the soldiers behind her, the way they expected her to slow down, to stumble, to give up. Her heart pounded, and for a brief moment, a flicker of doubt tried to creep in. But Maria had learned that doubt was a weapon that could only hurt her if she let it. She took a deep breath, straightened her back, and focused on one step at a time. The next challenge was climbing a tall wall. Soldiers who had trained for years approached it with relative ease, but for Maria, it was a true test of strength and technique. She hesitated for just a second at the base of the wall, but then her training kicked in. She grabbed the ropes, found her footing, and pulled herself upward. Every muscle in her arms and legs screamed in protest, but she refused to let them win. Step by step, she scaled the wall, ignoring the whispers of doubt from the men below. When she reached the top, she felt a rush of triumph. She had faced what many thought was impossible for her and conquered it. Next came a grueling crawl through mud and barbed wire. The soldiers ahead of her groaned and complained, but Maria stayed silent. She pushed herself forward, dragging her body through the muck, feeling the cold and sticky mud cling to her skin. Each scrape and bruise was a reminder that this was not going to be easy, but she welcomed it. She was proving to herself more than anyone else that she was capable of enduring hardship. By the time she reached the obstacle course's final segment, a long run while carrying heavy equipment, Maria's body was exhausted. Her arms trembled, her legs felt like lead, and her lungs burned with every breath. She could hear the snickers of the soldiers who doubted her at the start, as if to remind her that she was still just a weak woman. But Maria refused to let their judgments define her performance. She pushed through the pain, drawing strength from her determination and the countless hours she had spent preparing for this exact moment. Something remarkable happened during that final stretch. Soldiers who had laughed at her earlier began to slow down, struggling to keep pace with her. Their initial confidence faded as they realized that she wasn't just keeping up. She was excelling. Maria's focus and determination became a quiet force that no one could ignore. The very obstacles that had seemed impossible were now behind her, conquered through sheer will and strategy. By the end of the test, Maria had not only completed the course but had done so with precision and efficiency that surprised everyone. Her movements were calculated, her stamina unrelenting, and her focus unwavering. The same soldiers who had mocked her moments ago now looked at her with a mix of shock and grudging respect. Some could hardly believe what they had witnessed, while others remained silent, unsure how to react to her unexpected strength. The commander, who had been observing from a distance, noted her performance carefully. Maria had proven something crucial, not just that she could endure physical challenges, but that she could remain composed under pressure, think strategically, and push beyond the limits that others assumed she had. This was the turning point where Maria began to change perceptions, though she didn't notice it herself. She was too focused on the satisfaction of having conquered a challenge that many believed she couldn't. That evening, as Maria wiped the sweat and mud from her face, she felt a quiet pride that had nothing to do with recognition or applause. She had faced the skepticism of her peers, the physical limits of her body, and the mental pressure of proving herself, and she had won. This was more than a test of strength. It was a test of character. Every step, every climb, every grueling crawl through mud had reinforced a lesson she had always known. Perseverance, discipline, and self-belief are far stronger than ridicule or doubt. As she rested that night, Maria knew that this was just the beginning. The men who had mocked her would continue to doubt her. The challenges ahead would be harder, and the obstacles greater. But now she had a secret weapon, confidence born from action. She had already begun to turn their laughter into fuel, their doubt into motivation. And deep down, she knew that if this first test had revealed her strength, the rest of her journey would only continue to prove that the label of weak could never define her. Maria had arrived as the underdog, the one everyone expected to fail. But after that day, she had begun to transform that narrative. Every glance, every comment, and every smirk from her peers now carried a subtle change. A recognition that strength is not always obvious, and courage does not always wear a uniform. Maria's journey had begun in earnest, and this first physical test was only the first chapter in a story that was going to challenge, inspire, and ultimately redefine everyone's expectations. After the initial physical tests, Maria thought the hardest part would be over, but she quickly realized that in the military, challenges came in many forms. It wasn't just about lifting weights, running, or climbing walls. It was about dealing with people, handling pressure, and proving yourself in an environment where doubt and mockery were everywhere. The men in her unit had started noticing her abilities, but that didn't stop them from testing her in other ways. As the days passed, the teasing grew louder. Every small mistake was exaggerated. If she fumbled a piece of equipment or struggled briefly with a task, the men would chuckle and whisper behind her back. "See? I told you she can't handle it," someone would say. Others added, "Why do we even have her here?" The ridicule wasn't just verbal. It was in the skeptical glances, the rolling eyes, and the subtle ways they tried to push her aside. Maria felt the sting of their words, but she also knew something important. She couldn't let them control her emotions or her performance. During one particular training exercise, the instructors handed the soldiers a task that required teamwork and coordination. Maria immediately noticed how the men tried to exclude her. They assumed she wouldn't understand the strategy or wouldn't be able to contribute meaningfully. They whispered jokes about her behind her back, calling her just a weak woman, as they shuffled papers and equipment. It was frustrating, but Maria refused to get angry. Instead, she observed quietly, studying the exercise, the terrain, and the behavior of her teammates. She knew patience and careful observation would be her greatest allies. The task began, and as expected, her teammates faltered. Arguments broke out, mistakes were made, and progress slowed. Maria saw an opportunity. She stepped forward, calmly offering solutions and suggestions. Her voice was steady, and her instructions were clear. At first, some men scoffed, not used to taking guidance from her. But slowly, they began to follow her lead because the results were undeniable. Tasks that had seemed impossible for the group started falling into place, not because they suddenly became capable, but because Maria's focus, strategy, and quiet determination carried them forward. Even outside formal exercises, the mockery continued. During breaks, in the cafeteria, and in passing, some soldiers made subtle remarks intended to undermine her confidence. They would laugh when she approached equipment, question her abilities, and even make sarcastic, helpful suggestions, like, "Do you need a man to show you how to do that?" It would have been easy to let anger or frustration take over, but Maria understood that reacting emotionally would only give them power. Instead, she smiled politely, kept her composure, and used the time to reinforce her focus. Every challenge, every slight, became fuel for her resolve. Maria also realized that her journey wasn't just about proving herself to the men who mocked her. It was about proving it to herself. She began setting small personal goals every day, mastering a particular skill, completing a task faster, improving her precision. She noticed her own progress in ways that the others didn't see, and this gave her a quiet satisfaction that no mockery could take away. She didn't need applause or approval. Her motivation was internal, a fire that no one else could extinguish. There were moments of doubt, of course. Some days were harder than others, when the combined weight of physical exhaustion and social skepticism pressed down heavily. She would think about the whispers, the smirks, and the subtle jabs, and for a fleeting moment, question if she truly belonged. But every time that thought came, Maria reminded herself of the countless hours of preparation, training, and mental conditioning she had invested. She had worked too hard to give up now. The laughter of others became background noise, irrelevant to her purpose. Slowly but surely, a change began to occur. Not among everyone, but among those who were paying attention. A few soldiers began to notice her skills, her calmness under pressure, and her determination. They started listening when she spoke, even if quietly at first. The mocking words didn't disappear entirely, but the sneers were mixed now with glances of curiosity and cautious respect. Maria didn't celebrate this. She kept her focus on her work. She knew that recognition would come naturally once her consistent effort spoke louder than the jokes. By the end of the week, Maria had endured more than she had expected. She had faced physical challenges, mental strain, and social ridicule, yet she had emerged stronger. The mockery of being called just a weak woman no longer held power over her. In fact, it had become a kind of motivation, something she could channel into proving her strength, skill, and resilience every single day. She understood that her journey would continue to be full of tests, both obvious and subtle, but she now had confidence in her ability to meet them all head-on. That week taught Maria a lesson that went beyond the military exercises. True strength isn't just about physical ability. It's about endurance, patience, and mental toughness. It's about staying calm when others doubt you, keeping focus when you're ridiculed, and refusing to let someone else's assumptions define your worth. Maria had begun to internalize this lesson deeply, and it became her guiding principle for every task, every interaction, and every challenge to come. By the end of this period, Maria wasn't just a soldier in training. She was a silent force. The men who mocked her were beginning, unconsciously, to measure their own abilities against hers. And though she didn't yet know the full extent of the respect she was beginning to earn, Maria was confident that her consistent effort, her quiet determination, and her refusal to give in to ridicule would eventually make her stand out as someone truly exceptional. Maria had learned by now that the military wasn't just about public tests or group exercises. Real progress often happened behind the scenes, away from the eyes of skeptics and doubters. While her peers were focused on competing with each other or mocking her, Maria had discovered the power of quiet preparation. Every night, after the base had gone silent and the lights dimmed, she trained in ways that no one would see. This was her secret strength, the kind that could not be judged by first impressions or stereotypes. She would start with physical exercises, pushing her body beyond what she had already demonstrated in the day's drills. She lifted heavier weights, ran longer distances, and practiced climbing techniques until her muscles burned with exhaustion. But Maria knew that strength alone wasn't enough. Many of her male peers were strong, but they often lacked precision, focus, and discipline. Maria worked on all three. She timed her runs, measured her repetitions, and kept meticulous notes on her progress, ensuring that each session brought real improvement. Beyond physical training, Maria devoted herself to mental preparation. She studied tactical manuals, military strategies, and problem-solving techniques, imagining herself in high-pressure situations. She rehearsed scenarios where her team might be in danger or facing unexpected obstacles. By visualizing success, she trained her mind to remain calm, focused, and resourceful even when her body was exhausted. She knew that one day, these quiet hours would make all the difference. Maria's secret training wasn't motivated by revenge or a desire to prove the doubters wrong immediately. It was deeper than that. She wanted to become the best version of herself, independent of recognition or applause. The men who mocked her assumed she was weak or unprepared, but Maria had discovered that real strength comes from effort, discipline, and consistency, not from showing off in front of others. The harder she trained when no one was watching, the more powerful and unshakable she became. She also realized that preparation required patience. Every improvement, every small gain wouldn't be recognized instantly. Some days she felt like progress was slow, almost invisible. Yet she persisted, understanding that consistency was more important than immediate results. This patience was something her peers often lacked. They were focused on quick wins, bragging rights, and appearances. Maria, in contrast, quietly built a foundation that would eventually prove unbreakable. In addition to physical and mental training, Maria worked on her leadership skills. She observed interactions among her peers, noting how conflicts arose and how some soldiers struggled to follow instructions. She practiced giving clear directions, imagining herself in positions where she would need to take charge. Even though no one had yet acknowledged her leadership potential, Maria knew that developing this skill was critical. True respect would come not from mocking her, but from seeing her lead effectively under pressure. What made this period transformative was Maria's mindset. She reframed the ridicule she faced not as an obstacle, but as fuel. Each sneer, each dismissive comment, reminded her why she had to train harder, prepare smarter, and never allow anyone else's opinion to dictate her self-worth. The phrase, "just a weak woman," no longer felt like an insult. It became a challenge she silently vowed to overcome. Every night, in the dim light of her small training space, she repeated this vow to herself, reinforcing her resolve. Maria's secret strength also gave her a sense of calm confidence during the day. Even when the men in her unit continued to mock or underestimate her, she moved with quiet assurance. She knew that what truly mattered was not their laughter, but the skills, endurance, and discipline she was building in private. This inner confidence allowed her to remain composed, make smarter decisions, and perform tasks with precision, qualities that would eventually make her stand out. By the end of this phase, Maria was no longer just another recruit trying to survive the training. She had begun transforming into a soldier with a hidden edge, a combination of physical power, mental sharpness, and unshakable determination. Her peers might still see her as weak on the surface, but beneath the exterior was a force that no one could easily challenge. She was quietly preparing for the moment when her true capabilities would be revealed, and when that day came, the mockery would end, replaced by astonishment and respect. Maria's secret training also taught her resilience. She learned to endure pain, fatigue, and doubt without complaint. She developed the ability to focus on long-term goals rather than immediate gratification. Each day, as she pushed herself past physical limits, practiced strategies, or reviewed tactical knowledge, she became more disciplined, more confident, and more unstoppable. The soldiers who had mocked her had no idea that beneath the surface, Maria was preparing for a transformation that would leave them speechless. By the time her secret training had been underway for weeks, Maria could feel a profound change in herself. Her movements were sharper, her mind clearer, and her endurance far beyond what she had shown publicly. She knew she was ready to face bigger challenges, and she also knew that the time would come when her peers, and even the commanders, would witness the results of her hidden effort. Every ounce of sweat, every late-night session, every mental rehearsal was a step toward proving that strength isn't always visible at first glance, and that preparation behind the scenes can lead to extraordinary results when it finally emerges. The day of the high-stakes field exercise arrived, and the tension at the base was palpable. The commander had organized a mission designed to test not only physical ability but also leadership, problem-solving, and the capacity to remain calm under pressure. Soldiers were buzzing with excitement and anxiety, boasting to one another about their skills and past achievements. Maria, however, stayed quiet. She understood that this drill wasn't about showing off. It was about proving her true ability when the situation demanded it. From the beginning, Maria noticed the skepticism in her teammates' eyes. The men who had mocked her throughout the training were already whispering among themselves, expecting her to falter under the pressure. "She'll slow us down for sure," one said. Another smirked, confident that she wouldn't last long in the complex, multi-stage exercise. Maria heard their words but chose not to respond. She had learned long ago that reactions from others only give them power. Instead, she focused on the task at hand, recalling the countless hours of secret training and preparation she had completed. The exercise started with a simulated combat scenario, where soldiers had to navigate rough terrain, identify threats, and coordinate movements as a team. Many soldiers rushed forward recklessly, eager to prove themselves, but making careless mistakes that slowed progress. Maria, on the other hand, assessed the situation carefully. She analyzed the environment, anticipated potential challenges, and planned her movements strategically. Her calmness under pressure was immediately noticeable, even if some of her teammates initially dismissed it as hesitation. As the mission progressed, a series of unexpected obstacles appeared. Blocked paths, simulated injuries, and surprise enemy maneuvers designed to test decision-making and teamwork. The men began to panic. Their confidence faltered, and arguments broke out over the best way to proceed. Maria saw the chaos around her and stepped in quietly but decisively. She guided her teammates through the first obstacle with clear instructions and confidence, showing that composure often mattered more than brute strength. At first, some of the men resisted her guidance. They were not used to taking direction from someone they had labeled as weak. But Maria didn't push or argue. She simply demonstrated the effectiveness of her plan. Slowly, the soldiers began to follow her lead because the results spoke for themselves. Tasks that had seemed impossible under chaos were suddenly executed efficiently. Maria's preparation, patience, and keen observation turned the tide. She wasn't seeking recognition. She was solving problems, leading by example, and staying focused on the mission. The most difficult part of the exercise was a simulated rescue operation. A wounded teammate needed to be carried through treacherous terrain while avoiding simulated threats. Many soldiers struggled to coordinate, tripping or arguing over the best approach. Maria calmly assessed the weight, the path, and the timing. She guided the team, assigning roles based on strengths she had observed in her peers. Every movement was deliberate, every instruction precise. Slowly, the operation progressed smoothly, and the once chaotic scene became organized under her direction. By the end of the exercise, Maria had not only completed every objective, but had also ensured that her team had performed efficiently and safely. The men who had doubted her earlier were stunned. Their earlier jokes and mockery had been replaced by disbelief. Some tried to hide their astonishment, while others simply stared, unsure how to respond. Maria didn't gloat or celebrate. She simply focused on finishing the task. Her satisfaction came from knowing she had executed her plan flawlessly and had helped her team succeed. The commander, observing from a distance, noted Maria's composure, strategic thinking, and leadership. He had seen countless soldiers struggle in exercises like this, but Maria's performance stood out. She had maintained control under pressure, guided a team effectively, and completed the mission with precision. Her secret training, quiet confidence, and relentless preparation had finally paid off. This was the moment when her skills could no longer be ignored or underestimated. What made this exercise especially significant was how Maria handled the reactions of her peers. Some still whispered doubts, unwilling to admit they had been wrong. Others approached her quietly, seeking guidance or trying to understand how she had managed the operation so efficiently. Maria treated everyone equally, calm, confident, and composed. She knew that true leadership wasn't about proving people wrong. It was about solving problems, taking responsibility, and earning respect through action. By the end of the day, the impact of Maria's performance was clear. She had transformed from the underdog into a soldier whose abilities demanded recognition. The high-stakes drill had been designed to test the limits of everyone on the field, and she had exceeded expectations on every level. Her peers' skepticism had been replaced by admiration, even if it was reluctant. Maria had demonstrated that preparation, focus, and determination could overcome doubt, mockery, and even intense pressure. That evening, As she rested and reflected on the day, Maria realized that this exercise had taught her something essential. Strength and skill are not about proving yourself to others. They are about discipline, perseverance, and quietly pushing yourself beyond limits. She had faced not only physical and tactical challenges, but also the mental obstacles of skepticism, ridicule, and doubt. By succeeding where others thought she would fail, Maria had proven that true strength comes from preparation, composure, and confidence in oneself. From this day forward, Maria's peers would never view her the same way again. She was no longer just a weak woman. She had shown that courage, intelligence, and resilience could outweigh mockery and assumptions. The high-stakes field exercise had revealed her hidden potential and had set the stage for greater recognition and challenges ahead. Maria had learned that when preparation meets opportunity, true excellence shines through, sometimes leaving those who doubted you completely speechless. The turning point came unexpectedly during a particularly intense and dangerous simulated mission. The commanders had designed it to push the soldiers to their limits, both physically and mentally. It wasn't just about strength or speed this time. It was about quick thinking, strategy, and teamwork under extreme pressure. Maria knew this would be the true test of her skills, the moment when all her preparation and secret training could finally shine. As the mission began, the tension among the soldiers was immediate. The team had to navigate a complex terrain filled with hidden obstacles, simulated enemy threats, and unexpected challenges. The men who had once mocked Maria were visibly tense, struggling to stay focused while dealing with the chaos. Arguments erupted over minor decisions, frustration spread quickly, and the team's coordination was faltering. Maria watched carefully, assessing the situation. She realized that panic, not weakness, would be their greatest enemy. Without hesitation, Maria took a deep breath and stepped forward. Her presence was calm and authoritative, a stark contrast to the chaos around her. She began giving clear, concise instructions, directing teammates to safe paths, organizing movements, and identifying potential dangers. Some of the men were hesitant at first, surprised that she was taking the lead, but there was no time for doubt. Maria's confidence and precision demanded attention, and slowly, the team started to follow her guidance. The first major obstacle was a simulated ambush. The team had to navigate a narrow passage while avoiding detection by enemy forces. Many soldiers panicked, trying to rush through, but Maria moved with careful strategy. She calculated the timing of each step, advised teammates on where to position themselves, and maintained a low but commanding tone. Her calm under pressure was infectious. One by one, the men followed her lead, their earlier skepticism replaced with quiet acknowledgement of her skill. Next came a simulated medical emergency. One of the injured soldiers needed to be carried across rough terrain while under threat. Many of Maria's teammates froze, unsure how to handle the situation efficiently. Maria assessed the problem instantly. She delegated roles based on each soldier's strengths, instructed them on how to distribute the weight, and led the group with a combination of precision and empathy. Her actions were methodical yet urgent, balancing speed with caution. The team executed her plan flawlessly, completing the task faster and more efficiently than anyone had expected. Throughout the mission, Maria's ability to remain composed under pressure became increasingly evident. While others panicked, argued, or hesitated, she maintained focus and direction. She anticipated problems before they happened, prepared contingencies, and adjusted her strategies as new challenges arose. Her leadership wasn't loud or boastful. It was quiet, confident, and results-driven. This was the moment when her peers could no longer ignore her capabilities. What made Maria's performance extraordinary was not only her skill, but also her ability to inspire those around her. Soldiers who had doubted her began to follow her instructions without hesitation. The mockery and whispers that had once surrounded her were replaced by trust and cooperation. Her calm and strategic approach created a sense of unity within the team, allowing them to complete tasks that had previously seemed impossible. Maria was transforming not just her own reputation, but the effectiveness of the entire group. The final stage of the mission tested mental endurance. The team had to solve a complex problem under time pressure while navigating difficult terrain. Many of the soldiers were overwhelmed, unsure how to proceed. Maria analyzed the situation quickly, breaking it down into manageable steps and guiding her teammates through each decision. Her problem-solving skills, combined with her steady confidence, enabled the team to succeed where others might have failed. By the end of the stage, the team had completed the mission with precision and speed, largely thanks to Maria's leadership. As the mission concluded, the commander walked through the field, observing the team's performance. His eyes lingered on Maria, noting her calm, composed demeanor and the way she had guided her peers through every obstacle. The men who had mocked her before were frozen in disbelief, suddenly aware of the incredible skill and courage that had been right in front of them all along. They had witnessed someone they assumed was weak become the cornerstone of success for the entire team. Maria herself felt a quiet satisfaction, not from the surprise or admiration of others, but from knowing that she had executed her plan flawlessly. Every late-night training session, every extra-mile run, every moment of preparation had led to this moment. She had proven to herself and, indirectly to everyone else, that strength isn't about muscle alone. It's about discipline, preparation, and the ability to stay calm and think clearly under pressure. The Turning Point mission was more than just a simulated exercise. It was a revelation. It showed that Maria's perseverance, intelligence, and determination could overcome prejudice, mockery, and extreme challenges. Her peers, who had once laughed at her, now looked at her with respect and even admiration. Some were hesitant to admit it, but they could no longer deny her abilities. Maria's quiet strength had spoken louder than any words or insults could have. By the end of the day, Maria had achieved something remarkable. She had not only completed a dangerous and challenging mission, but had also transformed the perception of those around her. The label of weak woman that had followed her since the beginning of training was no longer relevant. Maria had turned doubt into opportunity, ridicule into motivation, and preparation into triumph. She had reached the point where her actions could no longer be ignored, and she had done so with grace, focus, and unwavering determination. This mission became a defining moment in Maria's journey. It marked the point where her peers began to see her true strength, where her leadership potential was undeniable, and where her quiet confidence began to inspire others. Maria had proven that preparation, resilience, and composure under pressure could triumph over doubt, fear, and prejudice. She was no longer just a recruit. She was a force to be reckoned with, a soldier who had earned respect through action, determination, and unshakable courage. After the high-stakes mission, the atmosphere at the base had changed. The soldiers who had mocked Maria just days before were no longer sure what to think. They had seen her composure, intelligence, and leadership during the mission, and while some were hesitant to admit it, there was no denying her capability. Even the most skeptical among them could not ignore the fact that she had guided the team through the exercise flawlessly. The commander had been observing Maria carefully throughout the mission. He had seen how she stayed calm under pressure, how she quickly assessed problems, and how she directed her teammates effectively. It was clear to him that her performance was not a fluke. Maria's quiet confidence, disciplined approach, and determination had made a real difference, and the commander wanted to acknowledge that publicly. As the soldiers gathered after the mission for the commander's debrief, there was a mix of nervous energy and curiosity. Many were eager to hear the feedback, some hoping for praise for themselves, others unsure how the commander would respond to Maria. The men who had previously mocked her shifted uncomfortably, their earlier arrogance replaced by a growing sense of unease. They knew they had underestimated her, and now they were about to witness the outcome. The commander's voice cut through the murmurs. "This mission was extremely challenging," he said, scanning the group. "I observed many of you struggle under pressure. But one soldier in particular exceeded expectations in every way. She led her team with focus, strategy, and courage. Her performance today was outstanding." His gaze landed on Maria. For a moment, the room went silent. All eyes turned toward her, and even the soldiers who had doubted her could not look away. The commander raised his hand in salute, a formal gesture of respect in the military. Maria froze for only a moment, then returned the salute with perfect precision. The men who had once mocked her were speechless. Their disbelief was visible on their faces. They had assumed that Maria was weak, unprepared, and incapable of leadership. Yet here she stood, having not only completed the mission but also guided her team to success, earning the formal recognition of their commander. The silence in the room was heavy. Some soldiers looked away, embarrassed at having doubted her. Others whispered quietly to each other, trying to process what they had just witnessed. Maria, however, remained composed. She didn't smile or boast. She simply stood tall, returning the commander's salute with grace and confidence. It was a moment that defined her journey. Years of preparation, perseverance, and determination distilled into a single, powerful acknowledgement. The commander continued, praising the qualities Maria had demonstrated. Calm under pressure, decisive leadership, problem-solving skills, and the ability to inspire others even in stressful situations. Every word he spoke reinforced the truth that Maria's success was the result of her own hard work and dedication, not luck or chance. The soldiers around her could no longer dismiss her as just a weak woman. She had proven that strength, intelligence, and courage are not limited by gender or appearance. For Maria, the commander's recognition was not just about validation from authority. It was the culmination of everything she had worked for. The countless hours of secret training, the endurance tests, the mental preparation, and even the ridicule she had endured all led to this moment. She had transformed skepticism into respect, mockery into acknowledgement, and doubt into triumph. It was a defining moment that would shape her future in the military and beyond. The reaction of her peers was a mix of awe, confusion, and reluctant admiration. Some soldiers approached her quietly, offering compliments or trying to understand how she had managed to perform so well. Others remained silent, still grappling with their own pride and the realization that they had underestimated her. Maria treated everyone with the same calm demeanor she had shown throughout her training. She did not seek revenge or ridicule. She simply demonstrated through her actions that respect is earned through skill, determination, and character. This moment also marked a shift in Maria's own perception of herself. She realized that true strength is not just physical endurance or tactical skill. It is also resilience, patience, and the ability to stay composed in the face of doubt and adversity. The respect of the commander and the acknowledgement of her peers were important, but the most significant reward was her own understanding of her capabilities. She had faced every challenge, every insult, and every obstacle head-on, and had emerged stronger and more confident than ever. By the end of the debrief, Maria had not only earned the commander's formal recognition but had also transformed the dynamics within her team. Her peers began to view her differently, not just as a capable soldier, but as a leader, a strategist, and someone who could be relied upon in the most challenging situations. The label of weak woman was gone, replaced by a growing respect that would influence every interaction she had from that point forward. As the soldiers dispersed, some still whispering in disbelief, Maria quietly reflected on the journey that had brought her here. Every late-night training session, every extra-mile run, every moment of preparation, and every ounce of perseverance had led to this recognition. The mockery she had endured no longer held power over her. Instead, it had been transformed into a driving force that had propelled her to success. In that moment, Maria understood a profound truth. True recognition comes not from demanding it, but from earning it through consistent effort, determination, and courage. She had faced doubt, mockery, and extreme challenges, yet she had remained composed and focused. Now, as the commander's salute and words of praise echoed in her mind, she knew that her journey had reached a turning point. She was no longer the underdog, the one who had been underestimated or mocked. She was a respected soldier, a proven leader, and an inspiration to everyone around her. The commander's recognition that day was more than just a formal gesture. It was a symbol of Maria's transformation. It marked the moment when her perseverance, skill, and courage had been acknowledged publicly, leaving no room for doubt. The soldiers who had once laughed at her now had to confront the reality of her strength and capability. Maria had not only achieved personal triumph but had also changed the perception of what a soldier, regardless of gender, could accomplish. The days after the commander's salute marked a turning point in Maria's journey. The men who had once mocked her, laughed at her, and dismissed her as just a weak woman were now forced to reconsider their assumptions. Every glance they gave her was different now. Respect had replaced doubt, and admiration had begun to grow, even if some were hesitant to admit it openly. But for Maria, this was never about proving anyone wrong. It was about proving to herself that she could rise above ridicule and expectations to achieve something remarkable. Maria's transformation did not happen overnight. It was the result of countless hours of preparation, mental focus, and physical endurance. Every obstacle she had faced, the grueling training exercises, the whispered doubts, and the direct mockery, had been an opportunity for her to grow stronger. Each moment of challenge had been a lesson in resilience, patience, and discipline. Now all those lessons converged in her everyday performance, showing the team that she was not only capable but exceptional. Her peers could no longer ignore her abilities. In drills, exercises, and daily routines, Maria now led with authority and confidence. The men who had once jeered at her began seeking her guidance, realizing that her strategies and advice often led to better results. They observed the precision in her movements, the clarity in her decisions, and the calmness in her leadership. Some approached her cautiously, still adjusting to the fact that the woman they had underestimated was now an integral force in their unit. Others, more openly, asked questions and tried to learn from her example. Maria never treated anyone with arrogance. She remained humble, focused on the mission and on doing her best, quietly inspiring others through her actions rather than words. The respect Maria had earned was not just about physical strength or skill, it was about character. Her ability to remain composed under pressure, to support her teammates, and to act decisively had set her apart. The soldiers who had mocked her learned an important lesson. Strength is not measured by appearance or gender, but by perseverance, courage, and dedication. Maria had embodied all of these qualities, demonstrating that anyone who is committed and prepared can overcome expectations and achieve greatness. As time went on, Maria began to notice subtle changes in the dynamics of the unit. There were no longer whispered jokes or dismissive comments about her capabilities. The men who had doubted her started including her in planning exercises, asking for her opinion, and respecting her decisions during missions. Even new recruits who arrived at the base quickly learned to see Maria as a symbol of excellence, someone who had faced ridicule and emerged victorious. She had become more than just a soldier. She was a role model. For Maria, the true reward was not the respect of others but the realization of her own potential. She understood more deeply than ever that courage and strength are built from within. They are forged in the quiet moments, during late-night training sessions, in moments of doubt, and through persistent effort when no one is watching. Her journey had shown her that resilience and determination could not only overcome external obstacles but also internal fears. She had learned to trust herself, rely on her preparation, and maintain focus no matter the circumstances. Her story began to inspire others in subtle but profound ways. Younger soldiers who struggled with confidence looked to Maria as proof that perseverance pays off. Those who had doubted her before were reminded that assumptions and stereotypes are often misleading. Even the commanders began recognizing her potential as a leader beyond the field exercises, understanding that her combination of skill, discipline, and emotional intelligence was rare and valuable. Maria's success became a testament to the power of preparation, dedication, and unwavering belief in oneself. Maria herself never let the praise or respect distract her. She remained focused on her mission, continuing to train, learn, and improve. She knew that true strength is ongoing. It is not a single moment or recognition, but a continuous effort to be better than the day before. Her humility, combined with her competence, made her not only respected but genuinely admired. People saw her as someone who could face any challenge, guide a team through difficulty, and emerge successfully while maintaining integrity and composure. The journey that had started with whispers of just a weak woman had come full circle. Maria's perseverance, intelligence, and courage had transformed skepticism into respect, mockery into admiration, and doubt into inspiration. She had proven that labels do not define a person, and that true strength is measured by action, determination, and the willingness to rise above adversity. The soldiers who had once laughed at her now looked to her as an example, learning the profound lesson that resilience and focus can surpass prejudice and expectation. By the time Maria reflected on her journey, she understood something important. Triumph is not just the recognition of others. It is the quiet satisfaction of knowing that you have pushed yourself beyond limits, overcome doubt, and stayed true to your values. Every challenge she had faced, every insult she had endured, and every obstacle she had overcome had shaped her into a stronger, wiser, and more confident person. Her story was not just about success in the military. It was about proving that determination, courage, and perseverance can change not only the way others see you, but also the way you see yourself. Maria had started as the underdog, underestimated and mocked, but she ended as a respected, admired, and inspiring figure. Her journey showed that strength is not always visible at first glance, and that determination and preparation can transform any challenge into a triumph. She had proven, not just to her peers but to herself, that no obstacle is insurmountable when met with courage, discipline, and unwavering belief in one's abilities. Her legacy in the unit would be remembered, not for the mockery she endured, but for the courage, resilience, and excellence she displayed at every step of her journey.